Greetings, Guardians, and welcome back to Olympus Alliance. Today we're talking about a relic release that is not just good, not just interesting, but potentially one of the strongest control upgrades we've seen in a long time. Today, we're talking about Lian. And if there is one word that defines this relic path, it is control. But not simple control. Not the kind of control that annoys the enemy for a second and then disappears. This is layered control. Control that spreads. Control that lingers. Control that starts turning the whole battle in your favor little by little until the enemy simply cannot play the fight the way they wanted. And that is what makes this relic release so dangerous. So let's go through it properly, in the correct order, because here every step matters. We begin with the first relic point, and the first skill in this path is Enthrall. This is where the whole structure begins. Enthrall periodically charms the central enemy and nearby heroes. And if enemies are already charmed, they take pure damage, while the others fall asleep for several seconds. That is already incredibly strong, because right from the beginning this relic path is telling us exactly what Leanne is becoming. She is not just charming one target anymore and waiting for value. She is spreading control across multiple enemies and dividing the battlefield into different states. Some enemies are charmed. Others are put to sleep. And those who are already inside her control cycle are punished with pure damage. That is a massive opening statement for a relic path. Because pure damage means no armor, no magic defense, no normal way of softening the blow. It simply lands. And when you combine that with area control, suddenly Lian becomes much more than a support or disruption hero. She starts becoming the center of a lockout strategy. This first step already tells us that the developers wanted to push her harder into battlefield control, but also to make that control feel more punishing. Now we move to the second stage, Relic level 10, and here we improve Enchantment. This is a very important upgrade, because Enchantment is one of the core reasons why Lian has always been annoying to fight against. Normally, charmed enemies can wake up when attacked. That is the natural weakness of control like this. But with the relic upgrade, charmed enemies now have a chance not to wake up when they are attacked. And this is huge. Because now the enemy is no longer just controlled. They are controlled with instability. The opponent can no longer safely assume that one hit will break the effect and restore normal action. Now there is hesitation. Now there is risk. Now there is the possibility that the enemy remains trapped even while your team is pressuring them. Of course, the chance decreases over time each time the skill triggers, but even with that reduction, the effect is still extremely impactful. Why? Because fights in hero wars are often decided in very small windows. One extra second of sleep, one extra moment of charm, one extra delay before the enemy starts acting again, that can be enough to win. So Relic level 10 is not about flashy damage. It is about making Lian's existing control far more oppressive and far less predictable for the enemy. Now we continue to Relic level 20, and this time the upgraded skill is Wandering Lights. This is where Lian starts adding much more offensive pressure to her control identity. Normally, Wandering Lights creates magical spheres and launches them at the nearest enemy, dealing magic damage. But with the relic upgrade, that damage becomes pure damage and increases. And once again, this is a major change. Because when damage becomes pure, consistency rises enormously. Tanks cannot rely on armor. Mages cannot rely on magic defense. It simply goes through. So now Lian is not only controlling the battlefield. She is adding a much sharper and more reliable damage layer to the fight. This matters a lot, Because one of the old weaknesses of control heroes is that sometimes they can delay a fight without truly threatening to finish it. This upgrade changes that. Now every activation of Wandering Lights carries more danger. Now every hit contributes more meaningfully. Now Leanne doesn't just create space for allies, she starts punishing enemies directly in a way that no normal defensive stat can really soften. So if Relic level 10 made her control more oppressive, Relic level 20 makes her punishment much more real. And now we arrive at the final stage, Relic level 30, where we unlock Heartbreak. This is the final piece of the machine. Heartbreak makes it so that when charmed enemies are attacked, Lian deals additional pure damage to them. And this is where the Relic path fully closes the loop. Because now everything starts feeding everything else. Enthrall spreads charm and sleep. Enchantment helps the control last longer. Wandering Lights adds stronger pure damage. And Heartbreak makes every attack against a charmed target even more painful. This is what makes the Relic release so impressive. It isn't just 4 separate improvements. It is one complete system. Charm now has more consequence. Sleep has more value. Pure damage appears in multiple layers. And every time the enemy is trapped inside that control cycle, they are punished again. That is why this Relic set feels so dangerous. It is not only making Leanne better. It is making her more complete. She starts the fight by spreading disruption. She keeps enemies locked more reliably. She deals more unavoidable damage. And then, at the very end, she turns every charmed target into a source of extra punishment. And that is exactly why I would say this is one of the best control relic releases we've had. Because true control heroes need 2 things to stay relevant. They need to lock the enemy down. And they need to make that lockdown matter. Lian's relics now do both. She is no longer only frustrating. She is threatening. She is no longer only buying time. She is shaping the fight. And in the right team, this can become incredibly hard to deal with, especially against aggressive opponents who rely on timing, burst, and fast execution. If they cannot act, they cannot burst. If they cannot wake up reliably, they cannot recover. And if every charmed target is now taking extra pure damage, then every mistake becomes more expensive. So the final picture is very clear. First, Enthrall expands the control field. Then Enchantment makes that control stick longer. Then Wandering Lights turns more of her damage into pure punishment. And finally, Heartbreak rewards every attack against charmed enemies with even more pure damage. That is not random design. That is a control engine. That is a relic path built to suffocate the enemy. And if used properly, it can be devastating. Guardians, this is a relic release that deserves real attention. Not because it is flashy, but because it is intelligent. It strengthens Lian exactly where she needed it most and turns her into a far more complete battlefield controller. So now I want to hear from you. Have you tested these relics already? Have you seen how oppressive Lian can become with this full path unlocked? And do you think this is one of the strongest control relic releases we've had? Let us know in the comments below. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and as always, salute and friendship.